Good afternoon, everybody. It's your friendly local librarian here in Spokane, Washington, where we just had a pretty volatile weekend of protests, like so many other people across the country. So, in honor of the national dialogue we currently have, or hopefully are having, about racism and police brutality, I wanted to do something a little bit different with today's book talks. So, right now, a lot of white people, including myself, are trying to find ways that we can educate ourselves on racism and how to be an anti racist without putting the burden on the black community. And one of the best ways we can do that, of course, as a librarian, I think, is to read. And there are a lot of great books on the subject. And the book I want to discuss today is called Stamped from the Beginning: The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America. And it's by Ibram X. Kendi. And Ibram X. Kendi is a writer and a historian and a professor. He is actually also the founding director of the Anti-Racist Research and Policy Center in Washington, D.C. And his book, Stamped, is a very academic, thorough history of racism in the United States. I haven't read it yet, but it has been on my to-read list for a while and has, of course, with current events, recently shot right to the top. And it is a discussion of how racism in this country and in the world is so much more than just what we think of, slavery or lynchings, although obviously those were terrible racist things. It's more than that. And that racism certainly did not end with the civil rights movement. The book made a big splash in the literary community. It won the National Book Award in 2016. It's a bestseller, and it's really supposed to be a very fascinating and thorough look at racism in America. Now, having seen the book and seen the size of it, I can see where for a lot of people it would be quite intimidating, which is why Ibram Kendi has worked with YA author Jason Reynolds to come up with a YA version, which is called Stamped: Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. Now, a lot of the times YA versions of books are just shortened versions with maybe a few things changed to be more amenable to a child audience or a teen audience. But in this case, Jason Reynolds, who is a really great, prolific YA author, actually translated the work, as he has said in interviews, from Kendi's very thorough academic language into a different version that is more accessible to teens and actually speaks directly to teens. So it's not as much of the thorough history, and it's more speaking directly to teens or other readers about the current climate of racism in the United States. And although I do want to read both, I have to admit that I will most likely be reading the YA version first. And I want to make sure that I put it out there that there is no shame in reading the YA version, or YA books in general, but certainly no shame in reading the YA version of nonfiction books, especially when it's something that's so important and so weighty and so dense with information. Sometimes you need something to kind of give you a primer that will be a little bit more accessible and easier to digest, especially when you're feeling so many emotions that I know a lot of us are right now. And so that's probably going to be my first attempt. And then maybe later, once I've got a little bit more of a foundation of knowledge, then I'll delve into the deeper work of the original adult title. And so I think that either way, whether you go with the YA version first and then go to the adult, or whether you just read the YA version or just read the adult version, I think they're all valid approaches. The important thing is to educate yourself. And so I highly recommend that you consider reading one of these two books or Kendi's other best-selling book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. There are also tons of other books on the subject that I can't really go into in my 5-minute book talks, but there's a lot of information out there that we can find and read and use to better ourselves and hopefully better our communities. One other thing that's really great is, in addition to, as always, being able to find these on Overdrive and Libby in ebook and digital audiobook format, the adult version of Stamped, the full version, is actually available right now for free without a library account and no holds or anything like that on Spotify. So if you have Spotify, particularly Spotify Premium, you can just go in there and look for the audiobook version of that book and listen to the whole thing without having to worry about putting a hold and waiting, because honestly, as it should be, these books are very popular right now and there are very long wait times on some of them. So if you don't want to do that, if you want to delve right into the information, you can go to Spotify and listen to that book right now. Thanks and have a great day.